Welcome to another episode of Unfiltered. Once again, no politics today. You gotta love it. Today I'm going to talk about the second half of my birthday trip from the end of July. I'm going to talk about Camden, Maine, which is a couple hours east of Portland, along the mid-coast of Maine. It's up near Rockland and Rockport, just above Rockport. I took a couple of schooner trips. Took a 10:30 in the morning trip on the Schooner Appledore, which was just a wonderful morning trip, light breeze. I'll start off by showing you a few pictures. First picture is, this is our captain, Captain Chris. Young, he's got that surfer dude look, you know. Very nice cat, knows a lot about the Appledore. Matter of fact, he lives on it year round. He spends his summers in Camden, Maine. He spends his winters in Key West, Florida. They take 4 trips a day out to sea, 7 days a week, weather permitting, of course. A knowledgeable young cat. Really knows how to handle the boat like a pro. On our way out of the port of Camden, it happened to be a regatta day. So there were ships of all kinds and boats of all kinds. As you can see in this picture, there's a schooner, there's a couple of schooners, and there's a beautiful yacht. And you know, when you see yachts like that, we went out past another one that was way out in the bay, and you see a yacht like that and you go, oh, I bet that's somebody famous, maybe, or just with lots of money. It's another one of the beautiful old schooners that was there, as well as this. I believe this is the schooner French, I think. Now there were a couple of schooners. Another shot of the captain at his post, looking all seafarerly and wonderful. And you notice his ice chest on the side. You're going to see a little bit more of that a little bit later. A shot off the bow as we were headed out into Penobscot Bay. Got a little artsy with this shot of the wheel and the throwable life ring. This is the schooner Olad as it went back in. It was headed back in off of its little cruise. This was our first mate, Jan. Great guy. This was the guy that makes the Bloody Marys. Now the Appledore is highly regarded and famous for its Bloody Marys. I've got some video coming up here in a few minutes. And while I was shooting video around the boat, and I managed to get back to where the little, what they call the bar area is, Jan was making the Bloody Marys, and they confiscated my film of that process because it's a secret recipe. Anyway, another guy really knows the sea. Again, he's lives on the boat also. So between Captain Chris and Jan here, this is their baby. They take care of it. They work on it. They keep it clean. A wonderful, wonderful boat. This looks like we've already turned around and we're kind of heading back towards Camden Bay, or towards the port of Camden. And the sails came down, and Jan and one of the other crew members this is what they call furling the sails when they pack the sails down. As we went by Curtis Light, and I'm going to show you a video here in a second of Curtis Light, as we went on the way out of Curtis Light. First mate Jan explained a little bit of the history of Curtis Light. Have a look at this.
That's the original marker for Camden Harbor. That was established in the 1830s. Its original structure was just a rubble pile with a light on it. Then they upgraded to a wooden tower with a whale oil lamp and one of those fancy lens things that they have. And then that burned down. And in the 1890s, they rebuilt it out of brick and stone, and that's the structure you see there. It's still the main marker for Camden Harbor. It's fully automated and solar powered now. There's no need for a keeper to stay in the keeper's cottage. So the town of Camden leases the keeper's cottage to the Conover family, a local family from around here, for the last 30, 40 years. Several generations of this family come here in the summertime, and they live in that house with no electricity, no running water. They collect rainwater and have to haul water in by boat. And they maintain the keeper's cottage, the lighthouse, and the island itself, which is a town park. If you can find your way out there, you can go walk around on it, walk up to the lighthouse itself, check it out, climb inside. It's really neat. Go check it out if you can find a way over there. But there's no public transportation over there. You gotta rent a boat or steal a boat or whatever. I recommend stealing a boat. Swimming, if you can handle really, really cold water, go for it.
Just set the Maine.
Stand by, man. Cheers. All right, guys, this is the volunteer portion of the sale. If any of you people want to get up here and give us a hand raising this thing, we would greatly appreciate it. It's quite heavy. Make for a great picture opportunity. Impress your friends, your girlfriends, your friends' girlfriends. It only weighs 1,000 pounds, and I get to do this 4 times a day. If you do not volunteer, I will volunteer. All right, so I'm going to get her on my smaller sales up forward. I will employ you two guys here to come and help us right here, all right? You stand right in front of her facing her. Stand right in front of me facing me, whichever one. Stand right at the line just like I got it. All the way B. All the way B.
All the way B.
Yep.
Pressure's on it.
Engraçada. Deve uma roça das aulas.
Hey, buddy, I need you to help her. That's really heavy. It's only 1,000 pounds. Well, look up, we're halfway there. All right, now, I'm going to say 2, 6, and heave. On heave, give me all you got, all right? 2, 6, heave. All right. All the way this way. All the way this way. All the way B. All right, good job, buddy. Good job. Strong work team.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if I'd want to steal a boat. That's probably not the best advice, unless you're a pirate. And who knows? I wouldn't try swimming up there either, because the water is quite cold. I believe there are little boats you can rent though to go out. It like this picture shows, it's a beautiful little lighthouse. I go on to this next picture, and this is one of the pictures I wanted you to notice. You notice over on the right side of the picture, you can see what looks like a sewer grate, and those are made out of wood, and they're beautiful. But you can see the big chest. That's the booze chest, and the Appledore does have a fully stocked bar, and they serve alcohol on the trip. And these are 2-hour trips. So believe me, you're not gonna waste an entire day, 2 hours out and back. It's a wonderful time. Again, another. I had to get a more formal shot of Captain Chris doing what he does, and you can tell that these people just love this. There's a more formal picture of mate Jan also. And anyway, but when you go out, they're very reasonably priced. And And again, it's just the fresh air, you know, and no need to take out your cell phone unless you're taking pictures or videos. My cell phone was jam-packed with videos from the Jonathan Edwards show, so I ended up shooting these videos I'm showing you today on my DSLR, my Canon. Again, wonderful trip. They're known for their Bloody Marys, you know. I believe they go out at 10, at 10, 12, 2, and 5, I think, or something like that. But they've got a website. It's the Schooner Appledore, and you know, during the summer they've got special, you know, I believe Friday evening cruises that have acoustic music. You know, and hey, if you're a romantic dude, you know, these are must-dos, you know. Grab your girl and head up. Go out on the sea for a couple of hours, you know. And I mean, the Appledore has a capacity of 49 passengers. I believe maybe we had 30 on our trip, 35 on our trip. The second trip that I went on, the Surprise, the Schooner Surprise, was a smaller vessel, and we left the dock with 17. So we'll see more of that. One of the great things about the Appledore that I thought was really cool, on top of every cruise is different. You know, some cruises you get a lot of history, and it depends on the crowd. And as you saw, you know, when they raise the sails, you can volunteer to help raise the sails. I mean, it's not very technical sailing. A lot of what these folks do that work on these boats is you know, customer relations. It's making sure you have a good time and that you have your questions answered, and you learn a little bit of history about the area. You learn about a little history about the boat. The Appledore actually circumnavigated. It was built just as for an around the world trip, and it's done a few of them, I believe. And it was named after one of the islands in the Isle of Shoals. Another thing I learned up there. And then, you know, once in a while, you get the odd things that happen. Apparently, Captain Chris had come across a poem recently that he was quite smitten by, and felt the need to share it. And I was right there. I'm glad he didn't mind me sticking my camera in his face. But here's Captain Chris's poem.
Down the dock with a swaggering walk came another salty lad. A hollow fid was in his hand, a sextant in his bag. From the placid Caribbean, where he made himself a name, he come to join the big rigs and sail the bounding Maine. Of spinnakers and bloopers and Cunninghams and such, he could tell you A to Z. He seemed to know as much as all those red pants yachties who tell you the storm they'd fought while sailing around the sound in boats of frozen snot. But he claimed to know the gaffers. He could tell you throat from peak. He brought along his Ashleys and smeared tar upon his cheek. And the moment he stepped aboard that big rig salt-stained deck, his eagerness to take the helm was barely held in check. Now Wayne the mate was forward, and Dan the bosun too, just sitting in the Rum Shark's lounge, knocking back a brew. Now I don't know, said Wayne the mate, about our newest hand. He claims to be a schooner boy, but his boots are full of sand. He steps aboard and spins a yarn of all the rigs he's known, but let's see him in the Widow's Maker when the hawse is full of foam. Let's send him aloft on a stormy night with a belly full of supper, and have him hand the topsail while the fishes are in the scuppers. I agree, said Bosun Dan, and so I have a plan, with which tonight will prove the mettle of this man. You meet me here in the Rum Sharks Lounge, and though our ways be rude, we'll make a proper schooner boy of this inland's waters, dude. So that night in the forecastle, they assembled all the gang. The fun was fast and furious, and loud the hooch bird sang. Amidst the din of shanties and strumming of guitars, in walked the new recruit, the jaunty would-be tar. A yachting cap was on his head, topsiders on his feet, but the boys all arose to greet him and offered him a seat. To the brotherhood before the mast, we welcome you, they roared. We knew you were one of us the moment you stepped aboard. And so, said Bosun Dan to the blushing new deckhand, we've assembled the elite of the schooner fleet, and they're here before you stand. And just one thing would make them smile, one thing would bring them joy, and that's to see you, honored sir, a bona fide schooner boy. Now the same, some say, is one who sailed through a roaring waterspout, but most genuine authorities this definition doubt. And it is the notion of this assembled renown that a schooner boy is one who drinks a sea slug cocktail down. A puzzled look crossed the new man's brow. I trust you do not tease. A cocktail I'm familiar with, but what's the sea slug, please? We're not surprised, said Wayne the mate, the slug you do not know, for they cling to the keels of deep water ships, where the big rigs go. They're soft and fat and pasty white and feed upon red lead, and bottom slime and barnacles and stuff that's pumped from the head. A toughish yarn, the new man laughed, as well you may admit, but I'd like to see this little beast before I swallow it. 'Tis easily done, cried Bosun Dan. Ho, cook, haste and bring forth some pickled sea slugs, a vintage of last spring. So the cook went to the galley, and in the reefer found a jar of slimy sea slugs, in sperm whale's vomit drowned. She mixed the critters up in a shaker of squid secretion and handed them over to Wayno and Dan, who drank down the creation. The would-be schooner boy turned green, his face a ghostly pale. He bounded from the forepeak and headed for the rail. And there he pumped his bilges while the schooner boys made jest, though if you've read your service, undoubtedly you've guessed. The sea slugs in those cocktails of such formidable size were just chunks of macaroni with red ink dots for eyes. But if you were a schooner boy, you'd know it was no sham. Those were bona fide sea slugs, no sweat for Wayno and Dan. For a schooner boy is forged in hell. He knows not little pains. His stomach's lined with iron, and there's salt water in his veins. Thank you.
So who's the author?
They don't know. They think it was written in 1982 by a mate and a bosun on the schooner Deliverance while they were circumnavigating.
Yeah.
So it's not that old, because there's reference, red pans, yachties, and boats of frozen snot. That's actually a quote from L. Francis Hareshoff talking about fiberglass boats. And there's all kinds of other references in there. It's really
Thank
cool.
you for sharing.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Cool.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's great.
Yeah, neat little poem. And, just one of those things that added to the day, So wonderful, great trip, the 10 o'clock cruise on the Appledore out of Camden, Maine. Had a couple drinks, enjoyed the fresh air. We lost the breeze about halfway through, but that's all right. Schooners have backup motors for a reason. Back in the day, before steam engines and fossil fuel engines that they use to drive these boats now, when it was just sail, if you were out to sea and you lost the wind, that was it. You became a raft. You were just no longer a sailboat. You were just a raft floating But that's it. The Appledore travels back and forth in the spring and in the fall. In the spring, it comes up from Key West. In the fall, it goes back down to Key West, and they do the same thing down there that they do up here. What a life! What a life! After the morning trip, I had lunch. I went and took a little nap. Got up from my nap, went and had a nice little dinner at what I found out later to be the local dive bar. I went in just because I thought the name was cool. It was called Cuzzies. It'd come to find out, I found out later that it's the local dive bar, which if you want to know someplace, anything about a town, find the local dive bar, because that's where, the real people are. The next trip was on the Schooner Surprise, which I booked the sunset cruise on the Schooner Surprise because, unlike the Appledore, which I believe was built in 1978, the Schooner Surprise was built in 1918. It's an old and still primarily original schooner. More pictures, folks. Our skipper, I believe his name was Rob, Captain Rob. Come to find out, he was from Mason, New Hampshire. He's a gentleman that gave up I believe he said computer programming, to be a schooner captain. He spends his summers in Camden, Maine. He spends his winters wherever he can find a boat in the southern climes. He doesn't really have a set winter port right now, he said. He has sailed Patagonia. He's sailed basically around the world. And again, another guy that knows what he's doing. He knows the boat. He knows how to handle the boat. He knows the sea. We had a little conversation because the wind was kind of coming and going, and we were talking, and he was pointing out to me the different looks of the ocean as you're standing on the deck looking out at the ocean. Sometimes you see glassy, that's a no wind spot, and then you see some with little rippleys, and that's like light wind. And then if you start to see white caps, it's a little bit heavier wind. And sailors have to take all this into consideration. They can look out across the ocean, and they can see the spots where there's no wind, where the wind is different. All stuff that you learn being a schooner captain and a sailboat guy. This was our first mate. If I remember right, her name was Jen. Very cute. A workhorse, let me tell you. She does everything a guy would do in her position. She raises the sails, she ties the knots, she does whatever she needs to do to get her job done. And again, you can tell by these people's faces that they love what they're doing. On our way out of the dock, we saw this little crew, a racing crew from one of the small racing schooners. And if you can count, there are 9 people in that little Zodiac right there, and they yelled over to us, "Don't worry, we're professionals." So here's a shot of Jen, who is giving us our survival. Yes, just like on an airplane, when you go out on a little schooner trip, they give you the little safety talk. She demonstrated on how to put the life vest on. Unfortunately, when a schooner crashes, no little air cups drop out of the ceiling or anything. Another shot of our great captain at the wheel. I took this picture off the deck. This is the Appledore headed in off of its last trip of the day, and they were having a great time over there. This is, you can tell the sun's behind the Camden Hills behind us. in our little group of people, all, mingling and getting to know each other. And there were people from Texas on board. There were people from Pennsylvania on board. If you're looking for just sky, here's just sky. Sky and ocean. But shots like this don't really do a whole lot for me. I have to have something in the foreground. So I start, sailboats are wonderful. There's all kinds of rope and things that you can put between you and the scenery. So this is a sunset shot off the dock. There's another sunset shot looking down the bow. Of course, a block and tackle. Shooting a block and tackle in a sunset is one of my favorite things, And, finally, as we were on our way in, it was 9 o'clock at night, and first mate Jen here, she jumped out across the bow. She was actually standing in the nets on the front, in front of the boat, furling the flags, furling the sails. And if you notice, if I didn't use the flash, it was almost pitch dark. And this girl did every chore that she had to do. Knots, lowering the sails, furling the sails, knots, everything in the dark. And again, a girl is real knowledgeable. I believe she said she was from Tennessee originally. Came to Camden after college and fell in love with the sea. I'm going to leave you with this picture because it's just gorgeous. What can I say? Once again, now we've gone 2 weeks without talking a bit about politics, and I love it. If you watch on Facebook, share me. Share this episode. I'm not telling you to go out and take one of these trips, but if it were me, I would. The Appledore, the Surprise, there's a number of them up there. There's a number of schooners that do 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 day trips where you actually sleep on the boat, which could be really fun. It's all the time I've got. Until next time, I'm Rick Blood. This is Unfiltered. Peace.